What's up, everybody? New Never You BGM back in the building. Today we got a breakdown of Opus 20 Dawn of Heroes, just like I said I was going to give you from the last video. This this is an extremely crazy set, and I've already seen people arguing over cards. I've seen videos of dudes going back and forth over specific cards, and I mean it ain't that serious, but I am going to give you my breakdown of these 133 cards. First we're gonna start off with, I'm not gonna say what rarity or whatever because you can obviously see. Use my mouse instead of my finger. That'll be R rare, C common, S starter, H hero, blah 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 blah. Just gonna say the name, and some of them I might read, some of them I might not, because some of them are basically the same card as another color, just a different color. So first off is Arden. When he enters the field, you may put 2 backups you control into the break zone. If you do so, turn over 1 card at a time from the top of your deck until 2 characters other than Arden are revealed. Play them onto the field, then shuffle the other cards revealed and return them to the bottom of your deck. So this is a way to get really anything that you need, or really just 2 free cards, whether it's monsters, forwards, backups, outside of himself, Arden. So that to me is a good payoff, because if you are running multiple not summons, backups anyway, you could, depending on where you are in the game, you could probably get 2 more backups off the rip just by playing this. And then if they have when blah 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 enters the field, those abilities proc as soon as this finishes. So I mean, it's basically a deck thinner resetter on a 7k body. And I mean, there's a few things that'll kill 5 cost cards, but not many. Auron. If you control 2 or more forwards, the cost required to cast Auron is reduced by 2. At the end of each player's turn, if Auron has received 4,000 damage or more, draw a card, and for free during this turn, the next damage dealt to you becomes 0 and deal Auron 8k instead. You can only use this ability once per turn. So he reduces his cost by 2 if you have 2 forwards of any color on the field. And then at the end of the turn, when let's say he blocks something for 7k, at the end of that turn he gets to draw a card, damage resets. And then if you were to get dealt damage, that's by ability, attack, whatever, it becomes 0. And then you deal points of damage to that guy, so 8k. And then, of course, you would draw a card. So this is a really good Guardian in all sense of the word. It doesn't just have to go inside of Final Fantasy X. It could go inside really anything that you're running fire in. And there's a few niche cards like Ishtola and Cypher that deal you damage, that will proc one of their 2 abilities when dealing with damage. So that's pretty good utility. And I know in the deck that both of those cards are used in, Ishtola and Cypher, are lightning fire. So this would be a good option. And it also has a full art Ifrit. Select one of the 2 following actions. If you have 5 or more fire characters, select 2 instead. Choose one. It's the same thing. Choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. So this is really good. I mean, it's a 1 cost. It 5k. There's stuff that if forward is damaged this turn, break it. And if you just so happen to have 5 or more characters on the field, then you can break something with 10k, or break 2 things with 5k or less. So really good in my opinion. Warrior Light. When Wall enters the field, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, remove 1 card among them from the game, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. You can cast it at any time you normally would cast this turn. So this is like Zidane for you. but the only thing is you would have to use the correct colors when casting it. So this card's okay, but it's overshadowed by a few other things that can do what it does, but on your opponent's decks. I mean, I'm sure it would come in handy at some point, but unless you know what the top 4 cards are that you can anticipate, it's kind of a gamble because you might not want to remove any of them and you might not be able to cast them. So this is a very hit or miss. So it's okay, and I'm sure it has its place somewhere. Garland, he has Brave with an EX burst. When Garland enters the field, choose 1/4 your opponent controls, deal a 2k for each backup you control. This is gonna be better as an X burst and not a actual forward, because that's a lot. 6 just to do that. And then if you don't do it on an EX burst, it can get interrupted. So I stand with this the same way I stand with the Warrior of Light. Blacksmith. This is one of the ones that do the relative the same thing as the other ones. But when it enters the field until the end of this turn, all forwards you control gain. When this forward attacks, choose 1/4 your opponent controls, deal it 7k. Okay, so this is different. This is really good, especially if you have a lot of forwards that have been on the field already, because that's game ending. That's insane. That's a really good backup. And you can have up to 3, so you can play multiples if you need to get rid of one, or if you just want to keep playing the same one. That's really good backup comment. This card, when it enters the field or attacks, select one of the 3 following actions. Choose 1/4, remove all the cards in your opponent's break zone from the game, deal 1,000 damage for each card removed by this effect. Name one element, deal 7k damage to all forwards of that element, or name one job, deal 8k to all forwards with that job. This is one of the 3 Warring Triad. It's our first legend, and it's a really good card. Really wish it was called something else, but it is what it is. It is a good card, and it probably won't be expensive because it's a 7-drop, and regardless of what the effect is, 7k is a lot. Now, there is a card in here that can cheat this out. I think this would be really good to use with that Escher Nalter card that I put in my other video, that Ice 4-drop, because it could play that with no problem and fully take advantage of everything that this card has to offer. So really good card, high cost, high reward. Kefka. When it enters the field, remove 3 of the Warring Triads with 3 different names in your break zone from the game, then place 1 magic counter on Kefka for each card you remove due to its ability. At the end of each of your turns, you may remove any number of magic counters from Kefka. When you do so, choose up to the same number of forwards as the magic counters you remove, deal them 9k. So right now, seeing I think there's only 3 Warring Triad. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if they ever make more in the future, then this card's versatility obviously goes up. It would have to be a multicolored deck right now if I have my facts in order. But I mean, this is one of those cards where if you keep it for when the time is right, when there's more stuff that it can go with, then I think you have a banger of a card. Right now, I think it's just kind of limited in its abilities because there's not a lot that are involved with it. Zach, when he attacks, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, deal it 5k for each job soldier you control. When Zach leaves the field, you may search for 1 Final Fantasy 7 forward of cost 4 or less and play it. Meteor Shots, deal 7k damage to all forwards your opponent control. It's okay. It's alright. It's Zach. If it was a 3 cost or 4 cost, I might be more lenient on telling you that this is a great card, but that 5 and 7 in this game are just those magic numbers that kind of hold cards back. I mean, I would get it just in case they make more soldiers in these games where you just didn't know that they even existed. But yeah, decent card. Wouldn't sleep on it, especially with that meteor shots. Even if you don't use the other ones, that meteor shot's still dealing 7k to everything you control. This is just a repeat of an Opus 15 card. When it enters the field, gain a crystal, and then put it into the break zone. Do that. Obviously, they're bringing this back for a reason, so don't ignore the fact that it has a crystal on it. If it's put into the break zone, you may search for one fire forward if it costs 7 or more and play it to the field. So this is a way to get your the demon or any other fire 7 plus whatever forwards. And I mean, it's also a number 5, so it's that magic number that we don't really like to see, but hey, it has a full art, it's a guardian, and maybe there's a Final Fantasy X deck that's about to drop that we need to be watching out for. I don't think there's a Sin that's fire. If there was, this would be really, really good for that. When it enters the field, choose one forward until the end of the turn. It gains 3k and Brave. Put it into the break zone. Choose one forward until the end of the turn. It gains the same thing. You can only use the second part during your main phase. It's just, and it's a buffer, so you know, standard buffer if you need it. It's a 2k, so it's not that bad. Culinarian, if you control 3 or more backups, the cost required to cast it is reduced by 2. So potential free CP generator, so not that bad at all. Tifa has haste. When a 7 character you control deals damage to your opponent to a forward your opponent controls, choose one forward. It gains this forward cannot block until the end of the turn. Then you can somersault, choose one forward, deal it 8k. I like this Tifa just because there's so many other Tifas you can use, and it's a cost 2, so you can always just use the somersault. And then her other ability is if they don't stop it, then you can just make it to where their whole field can't block. So, or at least the important forwards. Moro, this is a worse version than the one I covered in my other video, but it is a warp. So a warp 1, it has haste, and when it enters the field, do the warp, draw 2 cards, then discard 1. So good EX spirits. I mean, it's decent. Yeah, I would use it. I definitely would use it just because it has haste and it's a warp and it's a 7k for essentially 1 CP, 1 fire CP. Barret. When he enters the field, choose one forward, deal it 3k. Catastrophe, deal it 10k. Won't activate during the next phase. Yeah, I like this card. Simply because you can drop just a copy of itself, deal something 10k, and granted he might not activate during your active phase, but there's ways to activate him. The other one is you deal something 3k for each 7 character you control. So if you're running a solid 7 deck like in Avalanche, then this card could be a problem, and then you could always get rid of it to use the Fire Earth Barret or the other, I think it's Earth Barret. Yeah, so I mean, there's options, and then there's some Opus 1 Barrets that you could use just for his effect. So I like this card. When this card enters the field, pay a crystal. When you do so, choose a forward, deal it 8k. Put this card and its twin to the break zone, choose a forward, deal 8k or 10k. Since there's multiple forms of this, then you could really use this just to benefit using the second ability to get rid of the lesser ones that you don't want to use to deal something 10k. It's only a rare, so I think it's really good. I think it's one of those niche things that people are gonna overlook, and then somebody's gonna break it, and then it's gonna be the same outcome with the other ones from Opus 15 or 16, whichever ones they came from.
All right, now we got Phoenix.
So when this joint hit the field, you get to choose a forward, deal it 9k, and then you can remove the 4 cards in your break zone from the game, and then to the end of the turn, this thing becomes a 9k forward. You can only use this ability once per turn. So when it hits the field, boom, he busting heads. So I think this is a really decent monster, especially if you're running like the mirror engine, where you can just cheat this out once per turn or whatever, and just kind of like swap it. If you do like a wind fire build, you could probably bounce it to your hand, maybe even wind water. So pretty good legend in my book. Hedgehog Pie. When this card enters the field, discard a card, then search for another one of 2 costs or less play on the field. Put this one into the break zone, choose one for deal it 5k. So with this, you play one, pitch a card, you get another Hedgehog Pie, and then when that one hits the field, you ditch a card, get another Hedgehog Pie, and then if they make another Hedgehog Pie, you can just keep ditching cards and summoning it as long as they have this effect. But I mean, that's basically like the old Goblin card. So this card is really good for a common. I mean, especially if you like have a handful of cards that regenerate your field advantage or hand advantage when you ditch them, like Black Waltzes. That is going to be a really valuable card in my opinion. So good common here. Monte Blanc has a full art. When it enters the field, choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. If you control 5 or more fire characters, deal it 8k instead. So this is a pretty good backup. I mean, it's a cost 2. It's a common. It hits damage on impact, and if it's something they don't really want to lose or don't really want to take damage because of what you're playing, because fire is really good at just hitting random points of damage. So this is a really good card, and if you do have 5 or more characters on the field that are fire, then it's popping for 8k. So that's really good board pressure in my opinion. So good common. Red 13. You can only play this if you control a Final Fantasy 7 character forward. If you control 4 or more 7 characters, Red 13 gains haste. So a cost 2 with 9k that could potentially have haste. So if you don't know anything about the Final Fantasy 7 deck, that deck is lethal, and getting 4 characters on the field with 7 in the category is not hard at all. So this is a really good rare, and I would suggest that you get these joints foiled because he looks great. Whatever, I like this card. It's a cost 1 that can either dull a forward or freeze a forward, and it's just one of those cards that you kind of just leave on the board to create pressure. It's like, hey, I'm going to attack. No, I'm gonna dull him and dull it to dull your attacking card, especially if it's something you don't want to deal with. So this is really good in my opinion. Armorer, if you control 3 or more ice backups, the cost is required. So this is just like I think it was the blacksmith. I mean, it's whatever. It doesn't really build you anything, but I mean, if you need another backup for the following turn, this is okay. I mean, there are better options. Calbrain has back attack, which is fantastic. When it enters the field, choose one ability that is choosing only one character either player controls. The ability is now choosing Calbrain instead. If possible, when Calbrain is dealt damage by a forward your opponent controls, choose 1 forward your opponent controls. Deal a damage equal to Calbrain's power. So this is a really good card, especially if they're trying to blow up something else, because even if this is blown up, that when it's dealt damage is still going to proc whether it's on the field or not. So you can potentially steal the ability your opponent's using on a forward that you control, swap it to her, and then bounce it back to them. That's that old reflect that Unalesca used to do. Juggler has a full art. Full art's pretty dope. Also has back attack as a backup, which is really cool. And when he enters the field, choose 1 forward, dull it. This is really good, especially if like you have some active backups that you want to use to play him, or you have another card in your hand that you can pitch for him. This is, and the fact that it's a back attack, so you can do it on the beginning of their attack phase. This is a really good common. Really good common. Edward, EX Burst. When Edward enters the field, choose 1 dull forward. If your opponent controls 2 or more dull forwards, break it. This is what it is, especially if it's hit on EX Burst and they've attacked you twice, so you get to pop one of the forwards that have attacked you this turn. So you're looking really up. Decent forward. I would play test it. I mean, it's a common, so it wouldn't cost you more than 10 cents. Maybe free if you got some friends that pull extras. So give it a shot. Genesis. Warp 3 costs 2 ice. When it enters the field, select 1 or 2 abilities. If it was due to warp, select 2 instead. Choose up to 2 characters, freeze them. Your opponent randomly discards 1 card. So if you put this with the Sviets, Nero, and what's his name, Vice, this is a really good card because anytime they discard because of ability, Vice also freezes a card. So that's a potential of 3 frozen characters. And then Ice is really good at dulling things as well as lightning. So this would be a good addition to Ice Lightning. Especially you also have Theodore. So this deck is just eating very well right now. Cisne. When Cisne enters the field, place a Shuriken counter on Cisne. Dull Cisne to remove 1 Shuriken counter from a character you control. Choose 1 character, dull, and freeze it. So later on, there's going to be a card called Yuffie that also gets Shuriken counters. So if for whatever reason they make more Shuriken counter cards, Cisne is going to be the card that is using those Shuriken counters to the best of their abilities to dull and freeze something. So this is a really good card, even though there's not a lot of potential for it right now. Square Enix does a really good job of planting seeds, and whether you pick up those seeds or not is what's going to determine if you're a better player or just a good player. So I would suggest getting 3 of these because you never know when they're going to drop more Shuriken counter cards, but that's just my opinion. Jewel Nabat. If all the characters you control have ice element, she gains 2k. When she's put from the field to the break zone, you can pay 2. When you do so, choose 2 characters, dull, and freeze them. Every card with her name is good. So anytime you see Jill Nabat, pick it up. This card's going to be worth it. Mark my words. Even if you don't see it in meta play, doesn't mean it's not a good card. It just means people didn't take time to test the card, or they felt like there were better options. But to me, this card is the bee's knees because it's a Final Fantasy 13 card, which can also be played in the Final Fantasy 13 deck. And with people always trying to blow stuff on the field for a Final Fantasy 13 deck, this is a great addition. Now there is a form of deck that I've made that's fire, lightning, and ice that I think this would go perfect in. But yeah, maybe I'll show you that deck later. Setzer has a full art. Final Fantasy 6 forwards you control can form a party with forwards of any element. When 2 or more 6 forwards you control form a party and attack, choose 1 character, dull, and freeze it. So this is great for the Final Fantasy 6 deck, especially with the other cards we're going to go over in just a minute. So I would suggest that you add this to your arsenal even if you don't play it right away. Here's another one. If you control Locke, Celeste gains haste. Locke you control gains haste because of her. When Celeste enters the field, choose up to the same number of forwards your opponent controls as the same number of Final Fantasy 6 characters you control, dull them. So if you have Locke, Setzer, Celeste, Locke and Celeste get haste, and then Setzer allows them to form a party with any element, and so those 2 can already attack off the jump. There's going to be another thing that pops up that's going to make this deck just ridiculous, so grab this card as well. For each soldier 3rd class in your break zone, this one gains 1,000 attack. When it's put from the field to the break zone, you may search for another card of this name and play it onto the field. So if they make more, you can potentially have 3, 6, 9, whatever. And if this is the last one that you're playing and you keep the other 2 ice in your deck, it can potentially just be ridiculously strong, and you can use that for a powerhouse swinger or a blocker. So not the best right now, but potentially in the future. So you know. So before I read this one, I'm just gonna say, in my opinion, every card's good in different situations. Now there's cards that I'm gonna tell you to pick up all these cards if you can and play sets. But the reason is because I've been playing cards long enough to know that it only takes 1 card to break a deck. And so I'm just trying to give you things that I would get over others at the moment. When Cerulean Drake enters the field, choose a forward, freeze it. Put it into the break zone by dulling it. Choose 1 forward, dull it. Pay 1 ice and 2 other elements of CP. Dull this, put it into the break zone, and then choose 1 forward that's dull and break it. That's a lot, but it's also a cost 1 that you can have 3 of on the field. So it's a utility card. Let's say that. And depending on what you're doing with your deck, you could really make this really overpowered in any given situation because it doesn't have a restriction of when you can use it. Terra. When Terra enters the field, choose 1 summon of cost 4 or less in your break zone, add it to the hand. When she forms a party with a Final Fantasy VI forward and attacks, you may cast 1 summon of cost 4 or less from your hand without paying the cost. So this, Celeste, Locke, Setzer all work in tandem with each other. And this is the City of Final Fantasy card. So this is probably going to have some crazy unlocked potential in October when they release that anniversary box. So don't sleep on it. Night. Just a reprint of the old ones. So I don't like the fact that they did this because you can get a foil version of this again, and it's the exact same card from Opus 15, which to me is stupid. Opus 15 is still able to be bought, and Opus 15 singles are still relatively cheap. Now, the foils for these are expensive, but I mean, don't put anyway. Number 24. When number 24 enters the field or at the beginning of your main phase, 1. During each of your turns, place 1 barrier counter on number 24. If a counter is placed on number 24 gains. If number 24 is dealt damage, remove 1 barrier counter from number 24. And the damage becomes 0 instead. At the end of each of your turns, if 3 or more counters were placed on 24, dull him. So if he has 3 or more left, then he's dull. So this thing can just be an infinite blocker. That's really good. Yeah, that's definitely grab this. This is a 9K blocker that can basically have a new form. I guess it'd be Second Strike if we were to give it a name. Because if it blocks, remove the counter, make the damage 0, and then you're 9K. This card's dumb. This card is super pretty, and I want 3 foils. You get to select one of the 2 options: freeze all the forwards your opponent controls, and freeze all backups your opponent controls. So one of the 2. Either way, at the end of doing this, you have to remove this card from the game. If you have 3 of these foil and I don't have them by the time the actual box drops, holler at me on the Discord, Fairy King, and I will buy them from you or trade, whatever your heart desires. Either way, I need 3 of them things. 3 of them things. Wicked Mass, another back attack, but this one's a monster. When it enters the field, choose 1 summon that is choosing only 1 character in any zone. You may choose another character. The newly chosen character must be a valid choice. Until the end of the turn, Wicked Mass becomes a forward with 6K. No cost to activate that. So this is, if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! Reflect Bounder, this is basically what that is. So if they're trying to remove something from your break zone, you can just choose something else in their break zone and banish it instead. So this is a really good card in the correct situation. Otherwise, it's just a weird card that really mistimes if you do it incorrectly. Rude. You only pay Rude with CP produced by backups to cast him. When he enters the field, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, dull it, and freeze it. Then he has the special that's Haymaker by ditching a card of himself, and Ice CP, choose 1 dual forward, break it. So if you have 2 copies of him in your hand and you can cheat him out, you can pitch 1 card to break that dual forward that you just dull and froze. Or you can wait until it's actually their turn when they try to activate it for whatever reason with an ability. Break their heart, break the card. Rufus. If you have if you have Rude and Reno in your break zone, the cost to cast Rufus is reduced by 2. When Rufus enters the fields or attacks, select one of the 3 options. Choose 1 forward, dull it, and freeze it. Choose 1 job token in your break zone, add it to your hand. Your opponent discards 1 card. This is a bad looking card, man. The Rufus looks gangster in that all white drip. That is a really good card because if you're playing the Turks, I mean, there's so many versions of Rude and Reno to begin with, and that drops his cost by 2. And then when he enters the field or attacks, so if you can give him haste, which I'm pretty sure there is a Reno that gives all Turks haste, that you can do his effect twice that turn. And depending on what you need, I mean, you can duel 2 forwards, you can get 2. I mean, the combinations, they're not endless, but they're good enough to where this matters that you need this card if you're running ice. Turks. Reno attack. When Reno attacks, you may search for 1 card Rude of cost 4 or less and play it onto the field. So there's a way to cheat it. You can pay 1 ice and Reno gets haste to the end of the turn, and then his special is ditch a copy of himself and then choose up to 2 forwards, duel them. So these cards all work to duel, pop, break. Yeah, this is great. This is a great tandem of 3 cards. And then Cisne is also a Turk, so if you want to add her into the mix and do the shuriken thing, then that's good too. Locke, the homie, has a full art and EX burst, and when he enters the field, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 6 character among them to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. When 2 or more 6 forwards you control form a party and attack, Locke deals your opponent appointed damage. If 4 or more 6 characters form a party, also break all forwards your opponent control. So as many Final Fantasy 6 forwards as there are, this is not hard to do at all. Especially since Setzer makes them all be able to form a party with any element. So it doesn't matter what element they are, as long as they're Final Fantasy 6 forwards. And if 4 of them are attacking, then he also deals them opponent damage and then breaks all of their forwards. Even if they pop however many forwards you have, if they don't stop that ability, they're going to take essentially 2 points of damage for the ability and then 1 for the attack, unless they block, and then lose. Well, they can't block if you attack with all 4 forwards, because it's going to break all their forwards. So this is a really good card, and I know this is not going to be hard to do. So I definitely need to get the full art of this, Setzer, and Celeste. And man, I got some ideas cooking already. Brother that can attack. If you control the card Riku, brother gains 2 stacks. When brother enters the field, activate all category 10 characters you control. This is a good card, and it makes it difficult to decide if you're going to play the backup or the forward version. This also should have been a full art because he looks pretty cool, but this is one of those cards that you play after you attack in main phase 2 with Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 10 characters, because then you have a way to block next turn, because he gives them all the sauce and he has 10k. So if you have a Riku, which if you're playing 10, you never don't have a Riku. Edge, I really like this card. When it enters the field, select one of the 3 following options. If he was cast, select 3 instead. Choose 1 forward, it gains 2k to the end of the turn. Choose up to 2 cards from either player's break zone, remove them from the game. Edge gains haste until the end of the turn. And then you can pay 2 of any element and a crystal, play Edge onto the field. You can only use this ability during your turn and if Edge is in your break zone. So if you're running a crystal generation deck and it's in wind, you're always going to have CP for the most part. And then the crystals, there's cards that generate crystals at the end of the turn anyway. So this is a stupid, dumb card. This is a really good card. And this is going to be one of those cards that nobody wants to play because they don't want to do the crystal engine. And they're going to get caught because this card can do a lot. And it's very easy to do that. Ninja cards in general are some of the best cards because they act like they are ninjas. This card is really good, and I really suggest that you get 3 of them. Botanist. When Botanist enters the field, you may remove 1 backup without the triple play card counter you control from the game. When you do so, play 1 backup from your hand onto the field. Its auto ability will not trigger. So This can be really good depending on what you use it for. You just have to do it in the correct way. As long as you do it in the correct way, then I think this card has a lot of potential. It just really depends on the backup that you're playing. Just remember that the auto trigger won't trigger auto ability. Ghost. When Ghost 7 enters the field, choose 1/4, deal it 3k. Pay 1 win and dull this card. Remove it from the game. Choose 1 monster you control. Remove it from the game. Play it onto the field at the end of the turn. This is good because, like that Phoenix card, a Phoenix card, you can just remove it and then play it again at the end of the turn. I mean, you lose your ghost, but you get to deal something 9k essentially twice if you just played Phoenix. So this is really good depending on the monster setup you have. So 5 stars. Genova Dreamweaver cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons. Pay 1 win CP until the end of the turn. Dreamweaver also becomes a forward with 7k. And when it attacks, you may search for 1 card Dreamweaver and remove it from the game. When you do so, deal 9 or 7k to all the forwards your opponent controls. You can only use this ability once per turn. What? This card is great. This is insanely busted. It attacks, search for a copy of itself, remove it from the game, and then deal 7k to all the forwards your opponent control. 3 of Stilt Skin if you control Shalinka and Yuri. They both get 2k. So this is good if you're playing that. Outside of that, it's not really what you need. Shalinka. When she enters the field, you may discard 1 card. When you do so, search for Yuri of cost 4 or less, play it onto the field. If she forms a party, the damage dealt to the forwards forming this party becomes 0. Busted. Searches for a card, plays it, and then when it attacks in a party, none of the party takes damage. Busted. Chocobo. When it enters the field, choose 1 forward other than Chocobo or anything Chocobo name, Chocobo job you control. As long as this card is on the field, Chocobo gains 4k. That's good. That's especially if you're building a Chocobo deck and it also has a full art. You got a 9k 2-drop Chocobo that you can play 3 of. So yeah, I'm with it. I like this card. And it's cute. A Moogle riding a Chocobo. That's gangster. Fat Chocobo. The cost required to play or cast Fat Chocobo is reduced by 1 for every 3 wind characters you control. Deal 8k to all the forwards your opponent controls. This is, to me, this is a better Hecaton Cheer, because if you can cast it for free, you can do it on your turn or their turn. It doesn't really matter. This card is really good and needs this card is going to change the format. Mark my words. Mark them. This card, game changing. Nash. When Nash enters the field, choose 1 backup of cost 5 or more. If you have cast 3 or more cards this turn, break it. 2 win CP and then 2 CP of something else, and a dull put him into the, or put it, her, they, whatever, into the break zone. Choose 1 backup, break it. Yeah, I mean it's all right. Until we get some more threatening backups that cost 5 or more, this is just kind of be niche. But yeah, I mean, if Shantoto did what it did every turn, this would definitely be something to counter it. But I don't know. I'll have to keep my eye out for stuff like this. 128. Pay nothing to deal 7k to all forwards your opponent controls. This card cannot, the damage cannot be reduced. You can only use this if number 128 has received 4,000 damage or more and only once per turn. The special is deal 7k to all forwards opponent controls. The damage cannot be reduced. So with this, you could potentially deal up to 14k to your opponent's board. So this could be deadly, and I think it needs to be watched. And it's also a Final Fantasy 6 character, so just keep that in mind. When No expert EX verse. When No enters the field, activate all win characters you control. At the end of each of your turns, choose one forward you control, activate it. Really good. That's really good. Because if you, that's so good. Activate all the win characters, and then at the end of each of your turn, choose one forward you control, activate it. So if you have a forward that has a dull ability, after it attacks or whatever, or uses the ability to dull it, super great potential, and it also has a full art. This card, really good. When Prompto is put from the field into the break zone, draw one card. Pay one win, dull a card, or dull Prompto to put him into the break zone. Choose one forward during this turn. The next damage dealt to is reduced by 5k. This is going to be really good if they ever come out with a deck that damages itself to do things. So right now, I think it's just a protection ward. But when something like that happens, this card's going to be really good. And the fact that it lets you draw a card even after you use the ability, that's really cool too, because you not only save something 5k of hurt, but you also get to draw a card, so that's really good. Warp 2 for 1 win CP. When a warp counter is removed from build that, your opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the break zone. This effect will only trigger if she's removed from the game. When build that enters the field, choose one forward in your opponent's break zone, remove it from the game. You can cast it as though if you owned it. Anytime you could normally cast it. That's really good. So you get to banish 4 cards from the top of their deck, and then warp. And then if they don't, if they don't stop the ability, they have to stop it for 2 turns. And then they choose to stop that. They may potentially not have the resources to stop when she hits the field. Choose a forward in your break zone, and then you can cast it though you owned it at any time. So this is another way to cheat out Warrior of Light or any other overly powerful forward. So keep your eye out open for this card, because it's really, I might have to run this one. I might have to run some numbers, as they say. I don't even know how many I have in my sneak peek. When the goddess enters the field, place 1 doom counter on all forwards your opponent controls. When the goddess enters the field, at the end of your opponent's turn, break all the forwards your opponent controls with a doom counter on them. At the end of each of your turns, remove all cards in your opponent's break zone from the game. Okay. Hits the field, puts the doom counter on everything. Hits the field at the end of your opponent's turn, break all forwards your opponent controls with doom counter on them. So this is really good. This is really good. I'm pretty sure she has to be on the field at the end of their turn for this to pop, but this works with Orphan too. So this is a really good card, and it should have been a full art. It really should have been a full art. This is a very beautiful card. Very beautiful. I need 3 of these foils, so same thing as the other cards. Melfi, when she enters the field, you may search for Sonon and add it to your hand. Put her into the break zone by dulling her. Choose one forward of cost 5 or more, break it. That's a very good amount of forwards. Neo X Death is one that I can think of. So this is really good if you're doing the Sonon package, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be more Sonon cards in the future, because it is a Final Fantasy VII character, and the card game loves that game. Carpenter, same as the other ones. If you control 3 win backups, you get to play it for free. Yuri, when he enters the field, you may discard 1 card. When you do, search for Shalinka of cost 4 or less, play it onto the field. When it forms a party and attacks, select one of 2 following actions. Choose one forward of cost 4 or more, break it, activate all characters you control. So this one gets Shalinka gets him, and then when he forms a party, then he can do stuff. So these are really good, but there are other Yuris that you can use, so just keep that in mind, and just know that he has an option, and his abilities are quite good. So this breaks Warrior of Light, so just keep that in mind. When Yuffie enters the field, place 2 shuriken counters on Yuffie. When Yuffie attacks, you may remove one shuriken counter from Yuffie. When you do so, choose one forward, deal it AK. ninjas, like I said. And then you also have Cisne. So if they're both on the field at the same time, Yuffie attacks, move a shuriken counter, pop something for AK, and then you can use Cisne to remove her other shuriken counter to break a doll forward, I believe it was. Either way it goes, shuriken counter is going to be a thing, and if there's ever a way to put shuriken counters on things, and you can just keep putting them on Yuffie, that's AK per attack. When Ritz enters the field, choose one for your opponent controls, deal a 3k. When it is put from the field to the break zone, this turn, draw one card. It's okay. I mean, could be better, could be worse. It's one cost, and depending on what you're doing, this could be effective. So just keep that in mind. One cost, potentially draw a card, get rid of another forward. So there's things to be had with this. So don't sleep on it because it's not really great, but just keep it in the back of your mind just in case you're trying to come up with some burn deck ideas, because I think this could be helpful in that area. Repeat crystal generator from Opus 15. Arcasaradara. When it enters the field, choose one duel forward. If your opponent doesn't pay 3, break it. Ooh. Yeah, I like him. I like him with that robe, boy. That's super elephant. That's a good card. Antlion 4, my bad. When a backup enters your field or a backup you control leaves the field until the end of the turn, Antlion also becomes a 4 with 9k power. And when Antlion is dealt damage, choose up to 1 4 your opponent controls, deal it the same amount of damage. This ability will only trigger once. Yeah, so like I said earlier, if there's ever a deck that lets you deal damage to yourself or deal damage to forwards rather, cards like this are gonna be in demand, so keep your eyes open and your ears peeled. When Ignis enters the field, you may put one backup you control into the break zone. When you do so, choose one forward, break it. When a backup you control is put from the field into the break zone, choose one forward in your break zone, add it to your hand. This effect will trigger only during your turn and only once per turn. Okay, so when he hits the field, you can put something in your break zone that's a backup, and then you can choose a forward and then break it. Then when that same backup is put from the field into the break zone, you can choose a forward. So he gets to break something and then recur something. And I'm pretty sure you can cheat him out with the other Noctis. That's Wind, Earth. So this is kind of insane. If you think about it, that pretty decent card, pretty decent. This should have been a full art, hands down. Ifalna, I think that's how I pronounce it, or you pronounce it. That's a really wholesome, beautiful card, picture. Pay whatever you want and duel it. Put her into the break zone. Choose one Earth forward in your break zone equal to the amount that you paid. Play it to the field. You can only use this ability during your turn. This is gonna be a really good card because a picture says a million words, and this picture is one of those things that creates a very loving, wholesome thing. And the way that she's caring for Aerith in this picture is the way she's gonna care for your break zone when she pulls something out. So if you pay attention to the art in Final Fantasy, the cards tell you how things are supposed to be used. And that's how you can determine how something's going to be great. And that's how a lot of games are. So if you want to determine if something's going to be good in the future, just look at the card, at the art, and then read the effect. And that'll help you be a better player. I know it sounds weird, but I've been doing this forever. So just take my word for it. Or if you don't want to take my word for it, try it. Whatever. Do something. Aerith, Warp 2, pay 1 Earth CP. When she enters the field due to a summon or an ability, choose one forward in your break zone, add it to your hand. So recursion, and she's a Final Fantasy 7 character. Must I go on? When Chaos enters the field, you may search for one dark forward of cost 4 or less and play it onto the field. Pay 2 Earth CP, remove Chaos and 2 dark characters in your break zone from the game. Choose one forward, break it. You can only use this ability during your turn and if Chaos is in the break zone. I think Omega is a dark legend. Let me. Nope. It is a dark legend, but it's a cost. Never mind. That he's a cost 5. That doesn't work. If he was, then that would be really good. I don't know any cost 4 forwards right now off the top of my head, or less. I mean, Spiritus is a 1, which would let you pay something else to. So there's combos. There's definitely combos. Really good card. I think it's gonna have a lot of potential, and if they ever make cards that let us get stuff from the remove from game area, then this card's gonna be that much more valuable. Leather Worker, same as the other one. 3 Earth backups, play for free. Searan, when it enters the field or attacks, gain a crystal. Pay a crystal. He gains 2k to the end of the turn. And then pitch a copy of himself or the card with his name. Choose 1 forward, deal it 3k for each point of damage you have received. So pretty standard. Good crystal generator all around. So pretty decent if you're playing crystals. When Gigas FFCC enters the field, choose 1 forward. It gains this forward cannot attack or block until the end of your opponent's turn. Then you can pay. I don't know why I keep saying play. Pay 2 Earth CP and then 1 random CP. Dull this and then put him into the break zone. Choose 1 forward, deal it 8k. This is a really good monster. And I mean, it provides a lot of utility. And the fact that it's only a cost 1 and you can play 3 of them. This is, if you're doing a monster build, this is definitely a monster to have in your arsenal because it's really cheap and you don't have to do the ability to put him in the break zone the first time you play him. But this is a really good 1 cost. Pay nothing. Choose 1 forward you control other than Kamari. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it is dealt to Kamari instead. You can only use this ability once per turn. Discard 1 Earth card. During this turn, the next damage dealt to Kamari is reduced by 4k instead. So you can, I think that stacks. Maybe it doesn't. Nah, I don't think it does. Nah, I don't think it does. Reading it, discard the next damage. So okay, yeah, it would be the same. So okay, yeah, it doesn't stack, but still, he has 8k, and you would have to deal him 12k in order for that to break him using that ability, and then he can use it again for the next damage. So this is a really good Guardian card, and I'm sure there's gonna be somewhere where he fits in that somebody's gonna break it somewhere. Minor, when it enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 backup among them to your hand, and return the others to the bottom of your deck in any order. Pay 2 CP and then dull it, put them into the break zone, draw a card. Yeah, well, you get to add. You don't necessarily have to do the break zone thing automatically, but I mean, it's all right. It's okay. It's okay. Cecil, you can pay 1 Earth CP and 1 Water CP instead of paying the CP cost to cast Cecil. If you do so, when he enters the field, he deals you a point of damage. Put him into the break zone. Search for 1 card named Cecil with the job Paladin played onto the field. Pitch a copy of Cecil and an Earth CP. Choose 1 forward, deal it 8k. Well, with the new Orin would eat that or make the damage 0. So you could basically play this for borderline free, and then when you're done with it, use it to get the Paladin version of Cecil. So I like this card. I think it's pretty good. And then as many Cecils as it is, you can just pitch 1 Earth CP to hit something for 8k. That's pretty darn good. And it also has a full art. If you have a card named Melfi in your break zone, Sonon gains 1000 power and Brave. Pay 1 Earth CP and 1 random CP. Remove Sonon and Melfi in the break zone from the game. Draw 1 card. You can only do this if Sonon is in your break zone. It's pretty decent. I like the other Sonon better, the Legend, the box topper, but this one's pretty decent too. Probably the best card in the set to me is a 1 cost Tifa Brave Can't be dulled by your opponent's summons or abilities. When she enters the field, discard 2 cards, and then pay 2 CP that can only be paid by backups. Tifa can attack once more this turn. And this isn't a once per turn ability, so if you have 5 backups, she attacks, pay 2, she can attack again, pay 2, she can attack again, and then activate all your backups, pay 2, attack again, pay 2, attack again. And then if you somehow have another way to activate your at least 3 more backups, pay 2, attack again, pay 2. She could end the game by herself, is what I'm saying. This is a really good card. And it's so easy to abuse. And in the Avalanche deck, you can make her get haste. So this card's dumb. And this card's gonna be dangerous. This card's gonna be the new Lightning from the 13 deck. Because it can just it protects itself from too much. And then it has Brave. And I need 3 foils and 3 non-foils, please. When Noctis enters the field, choose 1 forward until the end of the turn. It gains 2k and Brave, so 9k and Brave. When Noctis is put from the field into the break zone, you may put 1 character you control into the break zone. When you do so, play Noctis onto the field dull. Noctis gains 2k. This effect does not end at the end of the turn. So when he comes back, he gets 2k. And then when he enters the field until the end of that turn, he's going to get another 2k and Brave. So essentially he'll be at 11k and have Brave if you can somehow untap him and give him haste. But he's just a card that's just going to keep coming back. So just keep that in mind. Geomancer, another reprint crystal thingy. Fake, Brave. If 1 or less time counters are placed on Fake, Fake cannot block or attack. When you receive a point of damage, place 1 time counter on Fake. Well, if you get 2 counters on him, then it's going down because Cuz got 10k and he got Brave and he got 2 costs. So if you can figure out how to get them points of damage on you without taking points of damage, like Orin for instance, then you know what it is. Fenrir. If Fenrir chooses a forward of cost 2 or less, the cost required to cast, it's free if he chooses a forward of 2 or less. Choose 1 forward, it gains. This forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons until the end of the turn. Well, that's a good savior for against Amaterasu, especially stuff like Lightning, because Lightning's a cost 2, and then you can play this for free, and then it makes it to where they can't. This card's good, and it has a full art. I'm gonna show you the full art on this one. That's yeah, that card's good. That's really good. Another mirror, or maybe the first one we've seen. EX Burst. When Mirror enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 monster among them to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. Put Mirror into the break zone, choose 1 monster, it gains. This character cannot be broken. This is going to be good because a monster deck is coming, and this Mirror and the other one that I think we haven't run into yet are going to make some nasty combos. So the Magus Sisters 14 cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons. The forwards your opponent controls lose haste. The forwards they control cannot gain haste. You can dull this, discard 1 summon, choose 1 forward, do it 8k. Yeah, that's good. That's real good. Especially, yeah, that's really good. That's real good. Leo has a full art. Cost 6. The category is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Forwards you control gain 1,000 power. When Leo enters the field, you may search for 1 category FFCC forward of cost 4 or less and play it onto the field. I don't know how many there are, but I'm pretty sure Mira is a FFCC. I'm not gonna go back, but if we run into another one, I will definitely double check. If so, then yeah, this card's pretty decent. It costs a lot, but it's decent. So this one I want because it reminds me of Vega. It's a very pretty card. I want 3 of these in full art. It's so gorgeous. One cost Assassin. When Assassin enters the field, you may pay 2 lightning CP and 1 random. When you do so, choose 1 forward, deal it 3k damage. Put Assassin into the break zone. Choose 1 damage forward. Break it. You can only use this ability during your turn. So man, this card is just so good, man. You could deal with so many things with just this one cost. And I mean, paying 3 is not that bad. I mean, just look at it as if you're playing a 4 cost, because you're gonna play it, lose this, but you're also gonna get another forward destroyed. So I need 3 of these. This card's really good, and it's only just a common. Alizé. When Alizé enters the field, choose 1 job, Scion of the 7 Dawn, forward of cost 3 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field. When a water forward enters your field, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, dull it. This effect only triggers once per turn. This is good because I'm pretty sure Alpha Node's a water 3 cost, so you play this, play Alpha Node. Alpha Node, I think, has an effect, and then this also has effect. I think Alpha Node dulls a forward, so you can stack it to where her effect goes second, Alpha Node goes first, and then you get to pop a card while also getting a card for free. So this is really good, and it's also the pre-release kit full art. That's really nice in person. When Angeal enters the field, choose 1 forward of cost 4 or less. If you control 2 or more job soldiers, break it. Put Angeal into the break zone. Choose 1 forward. It gains 3k to the end of the turn. This is okay. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be more soldiers that pop up in the future, but as of right now, I think this is a pretty balanced card, and I mean, I like it a lot. So there's definitely gonna be uses for it in the future. Estinian busted card, Warp 1, has haste, 1 lightning CP for the warp. When he enters the field due to warp until the end of the turn, he gains brave and can attack twice in the same turn. When he attacks until the end of the turn, Estinian gains 10k power in first strike. So when he attacks twice, he's going to gain 20k. Not that that matters, because there's nothing, I mean, not even Yuffie's Doom of the Living deals 28,000. So this is essentially the strongest card right now, and it has a full art, but it's also in that new foil that we're only getting for this set until further notice. But really good card if you're playing lightning, ice lightning, wind lightning. This is definitely something you want to have in your deck, because this card is just ridiculous and it's going to be a problem to deal with. And the fact that it's a Scion of the 7 Dawn card, that's just going to make the deck way more strong, a lot more stronger than what it already was. And this card is just going to be a problem, period. Thank God it's not a Dragoon card, because if it was, we'd have multiple problems. When Kadaj enters the field or is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 forward your opponent controls. It loses 4,000 until the end of the turn. It's alright. The Dark Kadaj is better, but I mean, for this is pretty decent. It's alright. Grahatia, if you control a standard unit category 14 character, Grahatia gains 3k. When Grahatia enters the field, you may pay any number of CP. When you do so, search for 1 job, Scion of the 7 Dawn, forward of the cost you paid, and play it. Well, that's your searcher and player. Well, that card's dumb too. Illusionist, dull it. Put Illusionist into the break zone. Choose 1 forward. Deal it damage. If it deals damage to a forward your opponent controls, the damage is increased by 2k instead. This is a pretty good card because it's a backup, and if you know something's about to deal damage to the forward your opponent controls, then you can just dull this and increase the damage by 2k. So pretty good. The Emperor, the cost required for your wait. The cost required for the characters your opponent controls to use their action abilities is increased by 2. When the Emperor is put from the field into the break zone, you may search for one card named the Emperor of cost 3 or less and play it onto the field dull. So this is pretty good because it makes them pay more to do more, and then once he's done, he just goes and gets another version of himself. So I like that card a lot. This card is pretty good. Shadow Dragon. When a card named Golbez enters the field, you may pay 1 CP of any element. When you do so, play Shadow Dragon onto the field. This only happens if he's in the break zone. When Shadow Dragon enters the field, choose one forward of cost 3 or less your opponent controls, break it. Pay no CP until the end of the turn. Shadow Dragon also becomes a forward with 3k power. That's freaking good. I mean, yeah, that's really good. I mean, he's good by himself, and then he's good with Golbez. So, I mean, hey, that's a really good card, and it's only cost 3. So, yeah, that's good. If you control a job king, core gains 2k, and when core is put from the field into the break zone, you remove the top 10 cards of your deck from the game. When you do so, play him from the break zone onto the field dull. This is just a good blocker. I mean, it's nothing else more than that. I wouldn't remove 10 cards from my deck to do that again, but I mean, unless there's something that happens when you play a lightning or forward. So if there is, then that may be worth it, but just reading the text of this card, no, I would not. Weaver. If you have multiple backups at a lightning, it's free. When Johnny enters the field, choose one character other than the card named Johnny in your break zone, add it to your hand. Pay 1 lightning CP and 1 random CP of an element. Dull it, put Johnny into the break zone, choose 1 category 7 in your break zone, add it to your hand. Yes, 7 is going to be a good deck. 7's already a good deck, and this just helps further the game plan of 7. You don't have to use this, but if you do, it does have utility, and it will be welcome in the Final Fantasy VII deck. Sephiroth. Warp 3, 1 lightning CP. When he enters the field, choose 1 forward other than Sephiroth, break it, and then you can pitch a copy of Sephiroth. Choose 1 forward of cost 3 or less, break it. Very few Sephiroth cards that aren't good, and this is no exception. This Sephiroth card is pretty good, and yeah, I'm sure it will have its use in Ice Lightning or a Warp deck, because we're starting to get more Warp cards, and with that Vayne card that just removes Warp counters, I could see this being a problem somewhere, most definitely. When Chadley enters the field, you may discard 1 card. When you do so, search for 1 lightning summon and add it to your hand. Then you can dull him, discard 1 common, discard 1 summon, put him into the break zone, choose 1 forward in your break zone, add it to your hand. I like the other Chadley where he gets counters, and then you can just dull him, get rid of one of those counters, and then get a character from your break zone. This one's alright too, especially if you need summons in your break zone for stuff like that old Yuna. So either way, either Chadley is good, but I prefer the other one for what I do. But this one, I like this one as well. Ninja, Crystal Generator. When Fusoya EX Burst enters the field, if you have 2 or more summons in your break zone, draw 1 card. When Fusoya attacks, you may cast 1 summon that costs 2 or less from your hand without paying the cost. So this is one of those lightning summons that Chadley can get to hand, and if there's multiple summons in the grave or break zone when you put this into the field, then you get to draw a card. So there's potential everywhere, and I think this is a pretty good rare, and the fact that it's a caster, then you know that makes all the more sense. So this card's pretty decent. When Behemoth enters the field, choose 1 forward, deal it 7k, pay 2 lightning CP and dull it, put Behemoth into the break zone, choose 1 damage forward, break it. This is really good for freaking 2 CP. I mean, and you can have multiple ones. So yeah, that's a really good comment, and that's a really good monster. The monsters are killing it this set. Mira FFCC, yep, it is. So Leo can search and play this. When an opponent's forward enters the field, you may pay 1 CP and discard 1 monster. When you do so, break that forward. Gosh. Put 1 monster into the break zone. Play Mirror onto the field duel. You can only use the ability if during your turn and if Mirror is in your break zone. So this card's going to be hard to get rid of, especially if you're playing a monster deck. And it's a really good card. This is the full art, and I hope to get 3 of them because I want to build a monster deck myself. This is really cool. I got a homie that would like those tomberries too. Remove. Select 2 of the following 3 actions. Choose 1 forward, duel it. Choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. Choose 1 forward, it gains haste to the end of the turn. Simple, sweet, delicious, good. Ramza. When Ramza enters the field, if you have a crystal, Ramza gains haste, and when Ramza is put into the break from the field to the break zone, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, break it. The effects do not end at the end of the turn. Oh. Okay, that's pretty neat. If you're doing crystals, that's actually a pretty good card. So yeah, I dig that. I dig it a lot. Reeve EX Burst. When Reeve enters the field, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 among them to your hand, and return the others to the bottom of your deck in any order. I'm glad they're starting to do return them to the deck instead of putting them into the break zone, because there were some old cards like Heidegger and Palmer that would just throw them into the break zone. In their place, that's probably good, but this one is a lot better. Yeah, I can definitely see some uses for this. This is really a good card because it doesn't have to be a forward, a backup, a monster, or summon. It's just anything, and then you just put the other ones away. So digging it. I like this card a lot. Here's the Alpha Nil I spoke of earlier. When he enters the field, your opponent selects 1 duel. Yeah, your opponent selects 1 duel forward they control, put it into the break zone. So, and then damage 3 gains 2k. So this with Alizé is going to cause a lot of headaches because it's making them choose. So there's not very many cards that they can use to stop his ability because they're the one choosing. It's not you affecting their cards. They're affecting them cards. You're affecting them. Urianger. When he enters the field, if 1 or more of your cards have been removed from the game, you may search for 1 category 14 forward and add it to your hand. Yeah, considering that just about every deck now either removes something from the game or makes you remove something from the game, this is going to be very vital, especially if you're playing a Final Fantasy 14 deck. Not only to mention, like, this also searches what's his name, Estinian, and then Gratia searches him and plays him. So you could go Gratia, Alizé, go into Alphano, or it's just so many combinations you can do. 14 is becoming a really, really powerful deck. Owaka. EX Burst. When he enters the field, if you control 3 or more backups, draw 2 cards and then discard 1. Really good. I like that card. And the foil is actually pretty nice too. Cecil, the other one. When he enters the field, or another Final Fantasy 4 character enters the field, gain a crystal. This effect only triggers once per turn. Pay 1 crystal. Choose 1 Final Fantasy 4 forward you control until the end of the turn. It gains 1k, and this forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities. Pitch 1 copy of Cecil. Choose 1 forward. It loses 5k until the end of the turn. Yeah, that's very Paladin-y. I like this card. It's a hero, and it's very, very nice character illustration for the full art. Deal 3 active characters other than him or it. Deal 1k for every 2 characters you control to all the forwards your opponent controls. Then, until the end of the turn, this becomes a forward with 8k. Considering water can activate its stuff too, this is actually pretty decent. So Yeah. Blue goo. When it enters the field, choose one forward, dull it, or activate it. Pay one water CP, dull. Put blue goo into the break zone. Choose one auto ability that is choosing a forward you control. Cancel it. That is fantastic. Fremdelia or Fremelda. When she attacks, draw one card, then discard one card. When you discard a forward by its effect, choose one forward until the end of the turn. It loses 3k power and she gains 3k. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good because it's water for one, and then yeah, that's a good card. Porum, White Mage, full art. When she enters the field or is put from the field into the break zone, draw one card, then discard one card. If the discarded card is a Final Fantasy IV character, also gain one crystal. Yeah, these crystals must be about to be really important because they keep making crystal stuff. But this is pretty decent card. The old Porum's better, but I mean, it is what it is. The Fiend. During each turn, when your opponent casts a summon for the first time, cancel the effect. Damage 3. During each turn, when the Fiend is chosen by opponent's ability for the first time, this turn, cancel the effect. Damage 5. The Fiend gains 1000 Brave, and if the Fiend is dealt damage less than the Fiend's power, the damage becomes 0. Yep, really good, and damage 5 would probably be the best time to play this. I mean, it's a good canceller too. So the Warren Triad cards, all 3 of them are good. So yeah. Mist. Warp 4 for cost nothing. When warp counter is removed from Mist, look at the top card of your deck. You may put it into the break zone. The effect will trigger only if she is removed from the game. When Mist enters the field, draw one card. I don't know really what this is for, but I have a sneaky suspicion that it's gonna be vital to some strategy because nobody really likes milling their deck, but deck thinning is a thing, so I can see where this could be important somewhere. I just haven't figured out exactly where, but I like the card. Yeah, when this card enters the field, choose one forward your opponent controls. As long as this card is on the field, it loses its abilities. At damage 3, it gains a stack. It is Dr. Doom, and I like the fact that you can null a whole card. So I really like this. This is decent to me. Yuna, full art. When she's chosen by your opponent's abilities, you may discard one summon. When you do so, cancel the effect. When you cast a summon, draw one card. You can only use that part once per turn, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your turn. Holy. Ditch a copy of Yuna. Choose one forward. Deal it 3k for each summon in your break zone. This card's good. I don't care what anybody say. This card's busted. This card is too strong. But Holy is also a very strong spell, so this card is expected to be strong with a good, this is going to be a really good card in the future. Unicorn has a full art, and it's also a summon. Select one of the following 2 actions. If you control a Final Fantasy VI forward, select 2. Choose one forward, activate it, draw one card. Choose one forward of cost 4 or less than your. Choose one forward of cost 4 or less your opponent controls. Return it to the hand. Yeah, see, stuff like this is ridiculous, especially if you have a Final Fantasy VI character, because you get to pitch whatever, unless you want to use backups. To use this card, you get to activate a forward, draw a card, and then you just get to return a card to your opponent's hand. And then if you're playing a certain deck, when a card is bounced to your opponent's hand, then you get to bounce something else. This is a really good summon, and it's no wonder it's a hero, and it's also a nice full art. This reminds me of the last unicorn from that cartoon way back in the day. It's Crystal Generator reprint. Fisher, dull it, put it into the break zone, draw 1 card for every 10 water cards in your break zone. Really good, low cost, high reward card. Warp 3, 1 water CP. When Luna Freya enters the field, your opponent selects 1 card they control, put it into the break zone. When Luna Freya enters the field due to warp, choose 1/4 your opponent controls, return it to the owner's hand. That's good. That's really good. That should be higher than the common. This that's, oh my gosh. Put 1 into the break zone, return 1 to the hand. This is gonna be a really good card for water. That's a really good card, and it's a really pretty card too. When Leslie enters the field, you may discard 1 card. When you do so, choose 1/4 your opponent controls, returning to its owner's hand. If the discarded card was a Final Fantasy VII character, draw 1 card. Oh no, Final Fantasy VII cards. So summon, monster, yeah, any of it. Yeah, that's a Leslie's good. Loporit. When it enters the field, draw 2 cards and place 1 card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. Oh, that's good. You don't have to discard it. Pay 2 of any CP and dull it. Put it to the break zone, draw 2 cards, and place 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. You can only use the ability during your turn. This is really good because you're not losing the card. Essentially, you just put it to the back, the bottom of your deck, which is better than discarding it to me, because if you only need 1, then I mean you're only gonna get 1 anyway. But you can do this to basically reset your hand. So I like this a lot. Same as the other ones. If you control 3 water backups, play it for free. Rosa. Full art. That's a really nice art. The cost required to cast your forwards can be paid with any element. And then when Cecil enters the field, draw 1 card. This effect only triggers once per turn. So you can use the Earth Cecil to play itself, draw a card, and then put him into the break zone to draw another card the following turn. So this is a really good card. A little weak, but it still has its uses, and it's very pretty. That's a very sexy card, actually. Waka Waka Waka. The cost to cast Waka is reduced by 1 for each backup you control. When Waka attacks, you can put 1 backup you control to the break zone. When you do so, choose 1 forward, deal 8 stacks. Hit him with that blitz ball. This is a really good Waka. Especially since in the Final Fantasy X deck you can use Riku to cast it with a little bit easier, and you can have up to 5 backups in that deck easily to make Waka a 2 cost forward instead of a 7. So this is really good in my opinion. Shinryu full art. This card is just good, period. If your opponent controls 3 or more forwards than you do, then you can reduce this by 3 to make it 2. Has Brave. And when it enters the field, you may search for 1 card of anything, add it to your hand, and then Tidal Wave is pitch a copy of itself or a copy of Shinryu, pay 6 CP, and then break all forwards your opponent controls. You can only do this on your turn, but I mean, he has 9k, and it is a really good card. And supposedly it's supposed to work with stuff coming out in the Cydia box later on this year, so I would get it just because of that. But not only that, I mean, it can break a whole field. If it did forwards, monsters, and backups, this card would have been the most expensive card in the set and the best card in the set. Materia, I need this in the full art. You can play 2 or more light characters on the field. When Materia enters the field, gain a crystal. Pay 1 CP and a crystal. Dull Materia, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 1 forward among them to your hand and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only use this ability once per turn. Pay 2 CP and duel her, gain a crystal. Simple, sweet, very pretty. Need it because it's a good crystal generator, and it's also a 1 cost that can produce light CP. If you're using light cards, you don't have to really go into your other ones, but this with Cosmos makes an excellent group of cards. Spiritus does the same thing for dark monsters, but at the end of each of your turns, if you have paid 2 or more crystals this turn, gain a crystal, and then you can pay a crystal and duel him. Choose 1 forward, it gains 5k until the end of the turn. Not as good as Cosmos, Materia in my opinion, but still good nonetheless. Xenos, the box topper. You can cast Xenos from the break zone. When Xenos enters the field from the break zone, at the end of the turn, remove it from the game. When Xenos enters the field, choose 1 forward of cost 3 or less, break it. When it is put from the field into the break zone this turn, select one of the following 2 actions. Your opponent discards 1 card, and then Xenos gains haste until the end of the turn. Really good, and the fact that you can bring him back from the break zone is even better. And if we ever get to bring stuff back from removed from the game, he's gonna be busted. Kuja. This is a reprint, so it's only gonna be a full art. When it enters the field, choose 1 forward of cost 3 or less. Your opponent controls, break it. Kuja deals you 1 point of damage. Thundaga. Pitch a copy of Kuja, 3 lightning CP. Choose up to 2 forwards your opponent controls, deal them 2k. Then deal 5k to all the damage forwards your opponent controls. Yes, you already know how I feel about that. That is good. Full art Emperor. When the Emperor enters the field, if you have 2 or more card named the Emperors in your break zone, your opponent discards 1 card. When the Emperor is put from your field into the break zone, you may search for 1 card, the Emperor, and put it into the break zone. If you do so, play the Emperor from your break zone onto the field at the end of the turn. This is a little confusing, but you play this one again, but you get to basically just loop it with as much Emperors as you have, and then you can make your opponent discard cards every so often. So if you're going for the discard effect, then this is really good. Outside of that, I wouldn't bother, but it is an mono art, so it's very niche, it's very great, and it's just, the art is fantastic. Card is good. It's just going to be hard to pull off if you're not playing specific cards. And then Neo X Death. It's also called X Death in all situations. At the end of each of your opponent's turns, your opponent selects 1 card they control, put it into the break zone. When Neo X Death is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, your opponent selects 1 character they control, put it into the break zone. This affects your opponent, not the other way around. So this is a really good card. And with some of the cards I told you how to cheat out, this makes playing this card a little bit easier. So with that, that is Dawn of Heroes, the complete set. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some things, and I hope that you read cards and look at their art more closely so you can become a better player, a better collector, and a better all-around analyzer. This is New Never You BGM. Hope you have a great day.